As the stars twinkle above, close your eyes and let your mind drift into the enchanting kingdom of Erindor. Here, Prince Alaric embarks on a magical journey to uncover the secrets of the Lost Isles, guided by the light of an ancient lighthouse. Feel the gentle embrace of night as his tale unfolds, filled with courage and wonder. Allow the soothing rhythm of this story to guide you into a peaceful slumber, wrapping you in warmth and tranquility. Sleep well, dear listeners. And let the magic of Alaric's adventure fill your dreams. Once, in a distant kingdom wrapped in mist and mystery, there lived a prince unlike any other. Alaric, Prince of Erindor, was a figure draped in intrigue, a young man more at ease beneath the stars than among the silk-draped halls of his castle. While others admired him from afar, they understood little of him, for Alaric was quiet and thoughtful, haunted by stories as old as his land. Tales of strange worlds, hidden shores, and ancient realms danced in his mind like leaves on a midnight wind. But there was one legend that gripped his heart more than the rest, a tale woven into the very bones of his kingdom. It was the story of the Lost Isles, land said to lie beyond the horizon, invisible to the eyes of mortal men. These isles, the story said, could only be reached through a single light, the fabled beam of an ancient lighthouse hidden somewhere along the northern cliffs. The lighthouse had not shone in 100 years, and none alive had ever seen it lit. Its stone tower, standing defiant against time, was shrouded in mystery, blanketed in vines and forgotten by all but the wild seabirds and whispers on the wind. They said it would light only once a century, casting a single beam across the ocean to reveal a secret path to the Isles, a path no sailor, no matter how skilled, could chart, for it would only appear on that one sacred night. Many dismissed the tale as a fable, but not Alaric. In the quiet moments of dawn and dusk, he felt it calling to him, as if the light were waiting for him alone. The kingdom was in a hush as the time drew near, for those who remembered the tales knew the fabled night was upon them. And so, on an evening wrapped in silence, Alaric left his castle with only a cloak and a simple lantern, his steps guided by an unseen force as he moved through forests and overshadowed hills. The ground grew rocky and steep as he reached the cliffs, the air charged with a strange energy that made the hairs on his neck rise. Somewhere far below, the waves crashed against the rocks in a steady rhythm, a pulse that seemed to mirror the beat of his heart. When he finally saw it, the ancient lighthouse stood like a dark sentinel against the silver-dappled sky. It was taller than he had imagined, a tower of stone half consumed by twisting vines and draped in the soft veil of forgotten things. It loomed above him, magnificent in its quiet ruin, as though it had been waiting in patience for his arrival. A lone gull cried overhead, its call echoing across the cliffside, and Alaric felt a shiver run through him, a feeling that something momentous was about to unfold. Taking a deep breath, he pushed open the door and entered the lighthouse. The air inside was thick and stale, untouched by light or warmth for perhaps a century or more. Each step he took on the winding staircase echoed in the silence, a sound that seemed to belong to another world entirely. Dust motes swirled around him like ethereal spirits, dancing in the dim light of his lantern. As he climbed, he wondered if the tales were true. Could such a light exist? Could it really show the way to hidden lands? Or was he merely a fool, seduced by old stories? But his heart refused doubt. Somewhere deep inside, Alaric knew he was meant to be here. At last he reached the top chamber, where the great lantern lay dormant, encrusted with years of dust and cobwebs. For a moment, he simply stared, unsure of what to do. But then, as if sensing his presence, the air grew tense, thick with a quiet hum, a vibration he felt in his very bones. Alaric held his breath, waiting, and then it happened. A spark ignited within the lantern, and slowly, like the dawning of a long-awaited sun, a golden beam burst forth, illuminating the room and casting an eerie glow across his face. The light shot out through the tower's single window, piercing the night and spilling across the ocean in a line of pure golden fire. Alaric rushed to the window and looked out, his heart hammering as he saw the impossible before him. A path made of light, shimmering stones glittering atop the waves, stretching out into the horizon. The air around him vibrated with purpose, with the weight of centuries. He knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that this was the way to the Lost Isles. The path, hidden for 100 years, was his to follow. Alaric felt a thrill that was equal parts fear and wonder as he prepared to step into the unknown. The prince, shrouded in mystery and guided by fate, would follow the light, for the path to the hidden lands lay open before him. The night clung to Prince Alaric like a cloak as he descended from the ancient lighthouse, the golden beam stretching out across the ocean, a path etched in light over water. His heart still raced with the vision of that single magical moment when the light had flared to life, piercing the darkness and revealing the way to lands that existed only in whispered legends. Now, with every step, he felt the weight of the unknown pressing down upon him, yet he moved forward, compelled by a force he could neither name nor resist. At the cliff's edge, a small weather-beaten boat lay waiting as though left by unseen hands, its wood worn smooth by salt and time. Alaric hesitated, studying the dark waves, and in the distance, he could see the golden path stretching, shimmering across the vast expanse of the sea. There was no guarantee it would remain. For all he knew, the light might vanish as suddenly as it had appeared. But he knew with a fierce certainty that he must take this chance. With steady hands, he pushed the boat into the water and climbed in, feeling the strange, cool calm of the sea beneath him. The boat moved with a peculiar ease, gliding along the luminous stones as if carried by invisible currents. In the silence, only the gentle splash of water against the hull and the distant cry of seabirds broke the night's spell. Time drifted in strange currents on the open sea, the moon hanging high above, casting an otherworldly glow. Alaric felt as though he had slipped from the world he knew and into a place bound by different rules, where time lost its grip and memory blurred. Hours stretched and folded in upon themselves as he followed the light-dappled path, each stone glowing with a strange, otherworldly gleam, guiding him toward the unknown. The further he travelled, the more he felt the shifting of something ancient and powerful around him. The air was thick with whispers, murmurs that seemed to rise from the depths of the sea itself. At first, the voices were faint, like the sighing of the wind, but as he sailed deeper into the night, they grew louder, more insistent, words from a forgotten tongue brushing against his ears, teasing his understanding. He looked over the side of the boat, peering into the dark, unfathomable depths below. The water was impossibly clear, and beneath the surface, he could see strange, glowing shapes, corals of unknown colours, plants swaying in an unseen current, and creatures that drifted like living shadows. Their forms were ghostly and translucent, their movements slow and graceful, their eyes watching him with a knowledge he could not fathom. A shiver ran down his spine, and he looked away, fixing his gaze on the path ahead. Yet he felt those eyes on him still, as if the sea itself were aware of his journey, as if it held its breath, watching him, waiting. The path stretched onward, each stone guiding him deeper into the heart of the ocean, closer to the secrets that lay hidden beneath the waves. And then, just as the first hint of dawn touched the horizon, he saw it. A shadowed shape rising from the mist ahead. The Lost Isles. They emerged like ghosts from the water, shrouded in a veil of fog, their jagged cliffs and shadowed forests etched against the faint light of the coming day. Alaric felt his breath catch in his throat, a mixture of awe and trepidation swirling within him as the islands grew clearer, more solid. The boat drifted toward the shore, as if drawn by an unseen hand. Alaric set foot on the sand, the grains cold and sharp beneath his boots. He looked around, his heart pounding, but the island remained eerily still, silent as a forgotten dream. The air here felt thicker, older, as though the very land was steeped in memories, in stories too ancient for words. He began to walk, his steps slow and cautious, each footfall echoing in the quiet. Strange plants, their leaves silvered and waxy, brushed against his arms as he moved forward, their scent sharp and foreign. Shadows moved at the edges of his vision, flitting between trees and rocks, figures that dissolved when he turned his gaze. Yet he felt their presence, watching from the shadows, silent and unseen. The path led him deeper into the heart of the island, winding through twisted groves and narrow, winding trails that seemed to shift and change as he passed. It was as though the land itself were guiding him, drawing him towards something it wished him to find, something hidden within its ancient heart. Finally, he came upon a clearing, bathed in the pale light of dawn. In the center stood a stone courtyard, its edges lined with statues, figures carved in a style he did not recognize, their faces worn and featureless from centuries of wind and rain. And at the heart of the courtyard lay a pool, still and silent, its waters dark as obsidian, reflecting nothing but the empty sky. Alaric approached, his steps hesitant, feeling the pull of something vast and unknowable. He peered into the pool's depths, and for a moment he saw only darkness. But then, faint and flickering, shapes began to emerge. A vision of lands beyond his understanding. Kingdoms that had once flourished and fallen. And a lone figure standing on these very shores, gazing into the same depths he now faced. And in that moment, he knew. This place, these islands, held a secret older than his kingdom. A truth whispered only to those who dared to look beyond. The light had brought him here, but it was the island that would decide if he would return. The dawn light seeped through the mist in gentle threads, illuminating the island's mysterious landscape, where silence clung as thickly as the sea fog. Alaric stood at the edge of the stone courtyard, transfixed by the vision he had glimpsed within the depths of the pool. His heart was heavy with a strange understanding, a realization that the Lost Isles held a memory far older than any he had known, a truth that pulsed like a hidden heartbeat beneath his feet. He moved away from the courtyard, letting his instincts guide him, following an unseen path through the twisted trees and winding trails of the isle. The air here was rich with scents unfamiliar to him, earthy and ancient, mingled with the faint aroma of something floral, like a perfume carried by the wind from another world. The plants, though still, seemed alive, their branches arching in shapes that resembled gestures or symbols, as if they were trying to communicate something just beyond his understanding. As he walked, the landscape shifted subtly, almost imperceptibly, as though the island itself was guiding him deeper into its secrets. His footsteps fell softly, echoing in the quiet, and every so often he would catch sight of movement, a glimmer of silver, a shadow slipping between the trees. But when he turned, there was nothing, only the thick underbrush and the silence, watchful and alive. After a time, he found himself at the edge of a high cliff overlooking the sea. Below, the waves crashed against the rocks, their rhythm unchanging and powerful, a reminder of the ancient forces that shaped these lands. Alaric felt a strange kinship with the sea, a sense that he too was part of this rhythm, drawn here by something beyond his understanding. And then, rising from the waves like a ghost, he saw another island, one that had not been there before. It was smaller, more rugged, its cliffs jagged and dark against the rising sun. Alaric could barely make out a stone bridge stretching from where he stood to this new isle, a bridge that shimmered in the morning light as if made from the very fabric of dreams. His heart quickened. He knew he was meant to cross. Steeling himself, he stepped onto the bridge, each step echoing against the stone, which felt as solid as any earth beneath his feet, though it shimmered with an ethereal quality. The air was thick with the hum of unseen energies, a current that seemed to draw him forward, deeper into the heart of the island's mystery. As he reached the end of the bridge and stepped onto the smaller island, he was greeted by a strange sight. A circle of ancient stone pillars, each carved with symbols he did not recognize. The stones were taller than he, worn smooth by time, and they pulsed with a faint glow that seemed to respond to his presence. In the center of the stone circle was a pedestal, upon which rested a small translucent crystal, its surface catching the light and casting soft rainbows on the stones around it. Alaric approached, feeling a tug in his chest, as if the crystal called to him, beckoning him to understand its purpose. He reached out and lifted it from the pedestal, feeling its cool, smooth weight in his hand. The moment he touched it, the island shifted around him and he was no longer alone. The air grew dense, as though filled with shadows that danced at the edges of his vision. Figures appeared around him, ghostly and translucent, men and women draped in robes, their faces obscured, but their eyes sharp and knowing. They spoke no words, yet he felt their message vibrate within his chest, as if his very soul were absorbing their voices. They were the guardians of this place, the spirits of those who had once called these lands home, bound here to keep its secrets and protect the crystal. Through their silent gaze, Alaric felt the weight of the choice that lay before him. The crystal, he now understood, was the key to the island's magic, the source of its hidden light. If he took it with him, he would be bound to the Lost Isles, his life forever entwined with its mysteries. Yet if he left it here, he knew he could return home, bearing only the memory of this strange, magical realm. He could keep the tale, but the power and mystery of the Lost Isles would remain hidden, locked within these stones and shadows for another century. The figures faded, their presence melting back into the mist, leaving Alaric alone once more. He felt the weight of the crystal in his hand, its cool surface warming slightly, as though alive with the pulse of the island itself. The choice echoed within him, stirring his heart and mind alike. He closed his eyes, feeling the silence envelop him, knowing that the decision he made here would forever alter his path. With a deep breath, he opened his eyes, gazing down at the crystal, and took a final look around at the island's ancient stones, its quiet magic. He could feel the land itself holding its breath, waiting for his answer. The choice had come. The crystal lay heavy in Alaric's hand, its faint glow pulsing like the heartbeat of the island itself. Around him, the mist thickened, curling in tendrils that seemed to watch and wait, as if the land held its breath alongside him. In his palm, the crystal was warm now, warming as if it were alive, as though it sensed the weight of his decision and resonated with the choice he had yet to make. Alaric felt the ancient eyes of the Lost Isles upon him, their gaze unseen but unyielding. He knew that if he took the crystal, the power of this place would change him forever. His heart would be bound to the secrets of the Lost Isles, a soul tethered to a magic that few had ever glimpsed, and fewer still could ever hold. The crystal, he understood now, was not a mere artifact, but the soul of the islands themselves, a piece of ancient magic bound to these shores, a light that had guided sailors across oceans, called dreamers from distant lands, and woven itself into legends beyond memory. He looked around, drinking in the strange beauty of the place, feeling the weight of its silence pressing down on him. The air around him felt thick, electric, filled with the presence of those who had once lived here. He could almost see them, glimpses of faces, faint and flickering, their expressions etched with longing, eyes filled with ancient wisdom. They seemed to hover on the edge of existence, a whisper of lives woven into the fabric of the Lost Isles, forever a part of this land. "Why have you come here, Prince?" a voice asked, soft as a breeze yet filled with an unearthly resonance. Alaric felt the words within his very bones. He looked up, but there was no one, only the mist, swirling in shifting shapes. He took a deep breath, feeling the words rise from his heart. "I came to find the light," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "The light that shows the way to the hidden lands." The mist seemed to shimmer, twisting around him in silent acknowledgement. "The light you sought is not merely a guide," the voice continued, softer now. "It is a guardian, a flame that holds the memories of those who have passed through these lands, a beacon that protects the realms that exist beyond sight. To hold it is to carry the burden of those memories, to be bound to their secrets." Alaric closed his eyes, feeling the weight of what the voice was asking. He thought of his kingdom, of the familiar shorelines and open skies, of the people he had left behind in his quiet quest. He felt their presence like a distant echo, yet here, in the midst of this ancient land, it seemed so faint, so far away. He wondered if he could ever return, if he could ever be the same, carrying such a secret within him. The mist shifted again, thickening into a shape, a figure barely distinguishable from the fog itself, tall and ethereal, with eyes that glowed faintly in the shadows. It watched him with an expression that held both understanding and challenge, as though waiting to see what choice he would make. Alaric met its gaze, feeling a strange comfort in its silent presence, a reminder that the path he walked now was one that countless others had walked before him. "If I leave the crystal here," Alaric asked, his voice steady, "what will become of this place?" The figure tilted its head, as if considering him. "The light will remain," it replied, its voice soft as twilight. "The path will stay hidden until another is called to find it, until another soul seeks what lies beyond the known. To leave it is to return to your world, untouched by the binding magic of the Isles, carrying only the memory of what you have seen." Alaric looked down at the crystal in his hand, its light reflecting faintly in his eyes. He felt the weight of choice in that moment, the solemn gravity of a decision that would define his life forever. He could take the crystal, carry the light of the Lost Isles within him, and forever be bound to its mysteries. Or he could return, leaving the magic untouched, his heart free, but forever marked by the memory of a land he could never truly claim as his own. After a long silent moment, he took a breath, his hand steady as he reached out and placed the crystal back upon its pedestal. The air around him seemed to exhale, a soft sigh that rippled through the mist, carrying with it a quiet peace. The figure, still watching, gave a faint nod, as though recognizing the choice he had made, honoring it in silent acknowledgement. Alaric felt a strange lightness within him, as though the island itself had released its grip on his heart. The mist began to thin, the shapes of trees and stones returning to familiar forms, the shadows retreating as dawn broke fully across the horizon. He looked back once, a final glance at the stone circle, at the crystal resting upon its ancient pedestal, casting its soft glow across the stones. With a final nod to the land and its hidden secrets, Alaric turned and walked back toward the bridge, his steps light, his heart marked by the memory of what he had seen, but his spirit unbound. The path shimmered before him as he crossed the bridge back to the shore, his journey etched in silence as the Lost Isles faded behind him, sinking once more into the mist and mystery of the unknown. And as he stepped back onto his boat, watching the golden path dissolve into the morning sea, Alaric knew that he carried within him a story as ancient as the tides, a memory that would live only in his heart, bound to his soul like a forgotten dream, whispered by the sea. The morning sun crept over the horizon, its pale light softening the shadows and casting the Lost Isles in a faint golden glow. Alaric sat in his boat, hands resting on the edges, his eyes fixed on the shore he had left behind. As the mist began to gather once more, swallowing the islands in its shifting embrace, he felt the bittersweet weight of his choice settle into his heart. The path of stones, once so radiant, had faded, dissolving back into the depths from which it had come. Only the faintest glimmer of light remained on the water, like the last ember of a dying flame. Alaric knew that he was the last soul to witness the ancient lighthouse's light, and that it would not shine again for another 100 years. By then, his name and deeds would be lost to memory, another tale for others to tell. Yet the secret of the Isles, the light that revealed the way, the crystal that bound souls to its mysteries, would live on, waiting patiently for the next soul brave enough to seek it. As the boat drifted back toward the mainland, Alaric allowed himself to think of the choice he had made, and a quiet pride filled him. The pull of the crystal had been fierce, the allure of its magic undeniable. In that moment, he had glimpsed the power that could have been his, the life he could have led as a guardian of the Isles, bound to the ancient light, his spirit forever entwined with the legends of lost lands. Yet, he had chosen to return. He had released the crystal, left the light behind, freeing himself from the enchantment that would have held him captive to a place beyond mortal life. Though he felt the weight of loss, he knew he had made the right choice, for he had preserved the mystery of the Lost Isles, allowing it to remain hidden, untouched, an eternal wonder bound by time and memory. As he drew closer to the shores of his kingdom, the familiar shapes of the cliffs and trees began to emerge, their forms softened by the early light. Yet to Alaric's eyes, everything looked different, as if a veil had been lifted, revealing new depths to the world he thought he had known. The land seemed sharper, the air richer, filled with the scents of earth and salt, life and memory. He felt as though he was seeing his kingdom for the first time, his spirit touched by the ancient knowledge of the Isles. When he finally set foot on the sand, he stood in silence, watching the waves lap at the shore, each rise and fall a rhythm as old as the world itself. He closed his eyes, breathing in deeply, feeling the earth beneath him, grounding him, welcoming him home. The sea behind him was quiet now. The path to the Lost Isles, lost once more in the folds of the horizon, waiting for the light that would not return for another century. The journey back to the castle was slow and silent, the world bathed in a soft, pearly glow. Alaric walked with a calmness he had never felt before, a peace that seemed to radiate from deep within him. He moved like a man who had seen beyond the veil of reality, a prince who had touched the edges of a world others could only dream of. And though he carried no relic, no proof of his journey, the knowledge he bore was far greater. A memory, a secret, a light that would remain locked within his heart. In time, Alaric returned to his life as a prince, his duties resuming with the rhythm of courtly affairs, the ebb and flow of royal life. He took up the mantle of leadership with a new wisdom, a quiet understanding that set him apart from those around him. The people of his kingdom noticed a change in their prince, a certain depth in his gaze, an enigmatic quality that neither words nor time could explain. Rumors began to swirl, tales of Alaric's journey to the northern cliffs, whispers of the Lost Isles, of a light that revealed the way to hidden lands. He never spoke of his journey, not in full. When questioned, he would only offer a faint smile, a distant look, his eyes glinting with a secret known only to him. And in the deep hours of the night, when the world lay still and silent, Alaric would sometimes climb to the castle's highest tower, his gaze drawn northward, toward the cliffs, toward the lighthouse that had shown him the way. The memory of the Isles stayed with him always, a thread woven into the fabric of his being. He would sometimes close his eyes and feel the pulse of the crystal, the pull of the stone bridge, the gentle whispers of the spirits that guarded the ancient land. And he knew that, though he had left the crystal behind, a part of him had remained there, bound to the Lost Isles, his spirit forever a silent guardian of their secrets. Years passed, and Alaric's legend grew, his tale woven into the kingdom's lore, retold in hushed tones by firesides, a story of a prince who had once followed the light of an ancient lighthouse and returned with knowledge as deep as the sea. And on moonlit nights, some claimed to see a faint, distant glow along the northern cliffs, a light flickering on the horizon, as though calling for the next soul willing to seek the hidden path. Alaric grew old, his hair silvered by time, his hands lined with the marks of a life well lived. Yet, in his heart, he carried the memory of that golden beam, the path of stone stretching across the waves, the crystal that had glowed in his hand. And as he took his final breath, he felt that light rise within him, one last time, illuminating his soul as he passed beyond the world of mortals, his spirit forever bound to the legend of the Lost Isles.